we've talked about different types of business structures. We talked about the sole proprietorship, which is fabulous, is used by over 80% of all the businesses in the United States, and actually is a famous worldwide model. Partnerships, which actually sit down and really help you increase the overall ability to start access to more capital, access to some good decision making as well. But the problem with that is always the aspect of both these sole proprietorship businesses. Number one is that whole thing of the liability issue, because it becomes personal for you. But in partnerships, also, you have that issue of friends being driven apart by money and business decisions. And then the corporations is the third type. We've talked about the C Corp, okay? And so the C Corp is for larger corporations. You can sell millions of shares of stocks in a C Corp in the process. So you look at that aspect of it. But we're going to look now at two types of corporations if you want to start your own business, that I would recommend using one of these two models, because you have the fabulous opportunity to have a corporation, which, as I've already mentioned before, is a separate person in the eyes of the law. So you have that limited liability only with the assets of the corporation itself, and it doesn't affect your personal assets and your personal ownership of your house, your cars, and et cetera, et cetera. So that being said, the first one to talk about is S Corp. And S Corp, really, it sounds really cool that S Corp, yes, it's fabulous because it stands for, S Corp stands for a subsection in the IRS tax code, the S section. Oh, well, I'm sorry. It could be cooler. You can make up something what S Corp means. But the reality of an S Corp is a government creation. It looks like a corporation. It's taxed like a sole proprietorship and a partnership. It's not quite a flow-through taxation model, because you have to file a separate tax return for it. So you have your personal tax return and your S Corp, but the actual income is combined, and you don't have that double taxation issue that you face with the C Corp. So this is a wonderful opportunity to have your own corporation with that limited liability aspect. You can have shareholders, directors, employees, plus the benefit of limited liability, and profits are taxed only as a personal income of the shareholder. Here's a couple of qualifications, though. You can only have 100 shareholders maximum, not 100 shares of stock, just 100 shareholders of different individuals by time you're counting them in the process. Okay, they have to be individuals or estates. Okay, and also to be citizens. There's only one class of stock. You can't have a common stock and a preferred stock, and an A stock and the B stock and the C stock and so on, like you can in a corporation and the C Corp, but just one class of stock. And you can't derive no more than 25% income from passive sources. In other words, from collecting interest off different bonds and so on. You can lose your S status if you don't operate within 5 years. So you have a limitation over there. So S Corp really is a positive way. And you have another model out there that is similar to the S Corp, and I'll talk about the differences in just a bit, the LLC. Right now, between the two of them, the way the tax codes are set up, you're a bit better off with an S Corp over an LLC. And I'll talk about the differences, because an LLC can be taxed like an S Corp, because it can be confusing. So an LLC is similar, but it doesn't have the eligibility requirements of 100 shareholders, because LLCs don't have any stock. That makes it simpler, okay, in the process. So by the time you're all done, you have the whole aspect of the limited liability. But when you look at the LLCs, look at that. They have the limited liability. You have a choice of taxation. You can have it taxed as a sole proprietorship with all that flow through income, or you can have it taxed like an S Corp. Let me pause here. Let me see over here. I'm going to come back to this. I want you to watch this from Gusto. Gusto is the payroll company. When you talk about an S Corp, you can take money out two different ways. You can take it out as a withdrawal of funds for yourself, or you can take it out as being paid as an employee. Now, the employee aspect means that you increase your overall taxation as a company, okay, because you have to pay Social Security taxes and all the other aspects of that, which is where a payroll company comes in, but you reduce the overall liability of the corporation. Big picture wise, let me tell you this is not in your textbook. The IRS views a corporation that within every 3 years, you need to make a profit. If you keep on having a loss in year one, year two, year three, you become in jeopardy of the IRS declaring that your business is not a business, it's a hobby. You don't want to have that status. You want to make money. If you sit down and have basically a withdrawal option and you decide to hire yourself as an employee, now, of course, it has to be within reason. Okay, if it's a matter of somebody a comparable size, a manager is getting paid $100,000, you can pay yourself $100,000 as well. And of course, by the time you're all done, you won't make that. You'll pay a large part of that in personal taxes for Social Security and et cetera. But the issue comes down to is you're taking the money that would have been profit, putting it in a different way, and also building up your Social Security, plus whatever else expenses you may have in the process. So here is Gusto. They're going to talk a little bit about the LLC. The LLC, you can draw and choose a sole proprietorship model, which doesn't have the ability to be an employee, okay, or you can sit down and have a tax like an S corp. Here we go. Hang on. I do like their company, and frankly, I've used it in the past. So that being said, we talk about the LLCs. I want to back up and talk about this. You have the advantage of the LLC. You can have a super simple methodology of just taking the distribution out from a tax perspective. And you can also choose that anytime you want to shift over to the S Corp type of taxation, or you can choose just an S Corp to begin with. Now, personally, I have the S Corp and I prefer that. And here's the reason why. On an LLC, there's no stock. Ownership is not transferable. If you decide to sell your LLC, you really can't. You have to dissolve it, and the other person can pick up their own LLC or their own corporation. But the reality of it comes down to is also if you want to pass on your corporation to any family members, you have to dissolve it. So if you have an LLC, You got 5 different people that are part of it. If one of them wants to retire, you got to dissolve it for the other 4 to take over and everything else. So I think the LLC is a little bit more complicated long term, but in the short term, by far is the easiest way of doing a corporation, and it's a fabulous way of doing stuff. So the LLCs and S corps, excellent for small businesses. That is exactly what they're designed for. Flow through taxation. Yes, on the LLC, you don't even need to file a separate return. S corp you do, but by the time it's done, the double taxation issue isn't there. And you S corp, you can sell shares. You can say, yo, let's go have lunch and sell 10% of your company over at lunch for a couple $100,000 and actually have a lot more capital. Get one type of stock, none for the LLC, of course, and then a perpetual life for the S corp. The LLC ends upon retirement of the principals. A really smart way of doing business. If you want to sit down and go into business as an entrepreneur, these are probably the 2 best ways to begin your process over here. Today, the S Corp is slightly better tax-wise on the federal level than the state, but that being said, they're both very good tools. Take care.